We have with us, too, the Vice President of the Watchtower Bible School of Gilead and also of the Society, Brother Franz, and he'll give us some counsel. Brother Franz. This occasion well reminds me of an appropriate text given by the Apostle Paul to the young man Timothy. Be watchful in all things, endure afflictions, do missionary work, fully accomplish your ministry. This was said to a man who was an overseer in a congregation. But it does not apply strictly to men. As we survey this tremendous crowd here in Yankee Stadium, and in particular these 127 graduates of the Watchtower Bible School of Gilead, we see that the feminine folk predominate, the ladies, the sisters. They are not excluded from this command to do missionary work. You will recall Psalm 68, verse 11, which says, Jehovah gave the word, great was the company of those that published it. It is interesting to note in this connection that this word translated company that published it is really in the feminine gender. So that correctly translated by the Hebrew scholar Leeser, the meaning of that verse, Psalm 68, verse 11, is, the Lord gave happy tidings. They are published by the female messengers, a numerous host. And certainly the female messengers in the New World Society are a very numerous host, and we're glad of it. It is missionaries that are being graduated today. What does that mean? That means that each one of these is in possession of a mission. He is sent forth on a mission. He is one sent. That is the particular sense of the word missionary. But of course our interest attaches particularly to what one is sent to do or to deliver. You are a missionary in that you are sent. And you know you are sent by Jehovah God through his organization, theocratic. But if we take the marginal reading of the New World Translation of this text, do missionary work, we see that it can also be rendered, do the work of an evangelist. Evangelist means a bearer of good news. It means that he is a good angel, and an angel means a messenger. So that we see that the basic significance of missionary and of evangelist are one and the same, because if an evangelist is a bearer of good news, if he's a good angel, if he's a good messenger, that means he has to be sent, because what are news for? Good news. But to send out What is a messenger used for? He's to be sent to carry a message to others. These graduates are being sent to foreign fields. In the main, these are fields where a different language is spoken. They must therefore learn the language or learn to know the language of the field. By that I mean not only to speak the language that is there taught, but to understand the message as it is talked to them. And not only to understand what the people say by their tongue, but also by their actions and by their customs and their habits, so that you can appreciate the feel of these people and enter sympathetically into their way of life and of expressing themselves. Do not depend merely upon the literature or the recordings in the language of that field. So you are sent to bear good news to these people. Take an attitude toward them, not of a hireling, one who is paid commercially or with material goods, but take a loving interest in these people because they really belong to the Lord God. What's their spiritual condition? As the proverb says, be thou diligent to know the state of thy flock, and look well to thy herd. So visit your flock, your herd, regularly, like a doctor does his patients to watch the case. Your work is a case particularly of spiritual healing, and that spiritual healing will affect the mind, it'll affect the heart, and it'll affect the conduct. Your business is to keep the flock of Jehovah God in fine condition. And if you do this, the reward will be great to you. But I want to emphasize one point. Don't be interested only in the people. You are being sent out as missionaries 2 by 2 or in larger groups. Be interested also in your fellow missionary and be determined to get along with them. I am reminded of an admiral of the American Navy who was sent on polar expeditions down in the Antarctic region. And during the winter that they spent there, advanced post observations were to be made. This admiral took up the position. When asked whether he wanted a companion with him in his little cabin there in the lone frozen waste, he said, no, I don't want anybody with me. He said that you can take 2 people who are the closest friends, very fond of one another, but you coop them up in close quarters or put them in a boat so that they have to sit opposite one another day by day and look at one another day by day and talk to just themselves day by day, and in course of time they'll get to hating one another, despising one another, and wish to get rid of one another. Well, he abode alone in his little cabin, but he was almost overcome by the fumes of his lamp, and when he failed to send radio responses to the base, they had to send out a rescue party to him and save him from dying. From this we note that we should not develop an aloneness, try to be alone to ourselves and live to ourselves. It is a fact that aloneness can lead to madness, and especially so since aloneness is not the arrangement that Jehovah God has enjoined upon his people. If true familiarity breeds contempt, close touch with one another's weaknesses may lead to impatience, boredom, and a sense of being burdened. You may feel limited in your free movement. And you might say, as you come in contact with your fellow missionary or missionaries day by day and get to know them most intimately, do I have to put up with this the rest of my time here? And this feeling might lead to hatred and to detesting the sight of one another. Cases like that have occurred, but this is not necessarily the case. It should not be, for we have a counteractive to this, and that is Jehovah God's Spirit. We must cultivate the fruitage of the Spirit of Jehovah God, which is love. And when we're moved to any improper feelings toward our closest co-workers in the missionary field through our daily and continual contact with them, then it would do us a lot of good to go and sit down and read the first epistle to the Corinthians and the 13th chapter about love. Love does not stay alone. Self-love can lead you to aloneness, but that is selfishness. It's not love. Why, take a young man who loves a young lady. You can't keep him away from her. I used to be young myself. But love cannot stay alone. Love is always seeking for the object of its love and affection. So love your fellow missionary. Stay close to them. Work with them. Do not seek to be waited on, to have others step aside for you to have things to your own convenience. Always be thinking positively some way to try to help your fellow missionary instead of being helped. And live together like a human family. Develop a real affection for one another, like a normal human family does. After all, we're from the same spiritual womb, aren't we? We're all brought up by the truth, and so we can develop a love for one another and live together as a family of God's children. Well, there are many other things that could be said about in the way of counsel, but here's one parting thought I want to say, and that is this. Listen to the president of the Watchtower Bible School of Gilead. He tries to keep in regular touch with you, and you keep in constant touch with him. And he tries to visit you as often as he can because he loves you. And he is looking well to the state of Jehovah's flock, and he's taking care of Jehovah's herd as far as is his responsibility.